11D family? I hope your weekend is off to a great start. We have an incredibly special show planned for you today because for those of you who have been following the show and following our band and all the things that are happening in the musical world of 11D7, you know that we hosted a remix competition, and the winner of this competition will receive every single item in our Rock Candy Recordings online store. So first of all, I want to congratulate every single person that went and downloaded the stems to our song Inside Out. They're still available on our website, actually on the website for the podcast. We are going to keep those up there for anybody who wants to take part in the musical community that is 11D Life. So Davey and I were absolutely blown away by all of the entries for this remix competition. A huge shout out to everybody who is hanging out at the 11D Life Facebook group. I know that a lot of you guys sort of use that as a testing ground for some of your remix submissions, and that's super cool. I love seeing that sort of stuff on there, and I'm sure that everybody who's a part of that community also loves being able to hear what everybody's coming up with and comparing notes. So the hardest part about judging this competition was that there is only one winner, that there's only just one grand prize to sort of take home. We didn't set up any sort of tiers. There's not a second place, there's not a third place, and looking back on that now, there's so many different things that I want to give awards for, that I want to give high fives and hugs and free stuff to people that submitted some of the remixes that you did, because they were incredibly creative. One of you guys even made an entire remix out of kazoos and shot a video for it. I'm looking at you, Jacob. What a wonderful surprise that was. So after compiling all of the remixes, spending a lot of time with them, we regretfully only get to announce one winner, which is such a shame because there's so many other people I would like to announce. And I should let everybody know that this was such an incredibly close call, that it literally just happened to be the way the straws fell that day that this person won the remix competition. So here we go. Without further ado, the winner of the 11D7 Inside Out remix competition is Phil Kovac with his Edge of Oblivion remix of Inside Out. Phil, you did such a cool job of mixing all of the different elements that were there, blending them up, moving them around, and using a lot of the same textures and stems and sounds that were there to make something kind of new out of something semi-old. So I thought that was super, super clever. But hey, guess what? We have some other incredibly talented musical ears floating around in the 11D-verse. Joel Drzymski, your remix was wonderful. AJ Wells, you had an awesome one as well. Matthew Wiltshire, I specifically loved all of the sounds that you used in yours. Gage Maservi, you did such a fun, interesting take on the song. We loved that as well. Jacob Muff with your kazoo. It sounds so funny when I say it out loud, but it's true. It was so much fun to watch your video of the kazoo remix that you did. So look, if you're one of the people that did not win the remix competition this time around, that's totally okay, because we're going to do another one, and we're going to let you guys decide collectively which song you want us to send the stems to for you all to remix. We're going to do that sometime in the near future, but before that, we would like to let you guys all know we've been talking about doing something live for a long time, and we have another announcement that I would like to make for all of the 11D Life subscribers and 11D Life Facebook community folks. Hey, we are thinking about planning a Christmas party that we can all attend and join in, and possibly doing the live show as a Christmas party here in North Carolina. Basically, just give us all an excuse to get in the same room, play some songs, hang out, high five, and who knows, maybe even get some of your absolute favorite 11D Life guests in the room as well to take part in conversation yet again. If this Christmas party idea sounds cool to you, but you are thinking to yourself, wait, I can make that even better. I have another cool idea for that Christmas party, or this is what I would want to see at the Christmas party. Go ahead and let us know. I know that we are like smack dab in the middle of summer right now, and Christmas seems so far off, but it's not. It's going to be here before you know it, and we would love to make a Christmas memory with all of you in the 11D family. So let us know your thoughts on that, and we'll see what we can make happen. Hey, if you tuned in last week, you got part 1 of my conversation with Tobin Bawinkle of Flatfoot 56. You can get to his music, which is pretty much the epitome of Celtic punk rock in my mind. I'm a little bit biased because I think he's a cool dude. You can get to his music in the show notes for today's episode. So if you liked last week's conversation with Tobin, you're going to like this one even more. It just continues to ramp up. So, congratulations, Phil, on winning everything in the Rock Candy online store. A huge congratulations to everybody who participated in the Inside Out Remix competition. You guys killed it. We can't wait to do it again. And without further ado, here's the show.
I did a podcast with my buddy the other day. He has a podcast, Sam Dean, and he was very similar kind of conversation. Like he was in a Christian hardcore band back in the early 2000s, toured with us and played shows. And he doesn't profess to believe anymore at all. And one thing he said that was really interesting was that he's like, I have a lot of grace for Christians because I think that if people in the world were to get as close as people at church do, they would ruin each other just as much. It's just the fact that they claim to have the truth that makes it harder.
I love that. That's so smart.
It's the truth. Like, most people don't have the guts to be close because to the extent of which you're willing to love is the extent that you're going to be hurt. And I would venture to say, and this is just me, but like, if God is love, which he says he is according to the Christian tradition, his number one priority is to teach us what love means. And love is not all fuzzy, boners when you're in high school. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's not. Like, it's to love enough that you might get completely screwed over and killed for the love that you hold. Like, and that changes the meaning of love in a big way. Like,
I think that might be what I titled the episode. Fuzzy boners in high school.
You would.
I feel like that would be like the most amazing drink you could order at a tiki bar. Can I have the fuzzy boner, please? Forget the navel. I'm going straight for the boner.
I don't know where that term came from. I've never uttered those words in my life.
It's because I bring out the weird in people, I think.
No, that's great.
I want to say the worst, but
it's a gift. It's a spiritual gift. I bring out the weird in people. But yeah, man, I don't know. This whole journey is like very much like, I think, and this is all me thinking, man, but like I think that God's big enough to be able to handle our questions. And the church might not be. They might not be mature enough to be able to handle it. A real mature response from the church would be to say, I'm here for you if I can help at all. But I encourage you on your journey. Like, and here's the thing. We say as Christians, you say you believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Well, if somebody's authentically pursuing truth with everything that they have in them, they should be allowed to pursue it because they're going to arrive at him anyway. Because we know that the Holy Spirit is drawing all men unto himself. So like, allow God to do his work and shut up half the time and allow people to process. Like, that's the truth. That's what needs to happen. And like, we need to trust. I mean, we need to trust and stop making the Bible a rule book because it's not.
Is that why you're not adamant at all in telling me that I'm wrong in any of these things, or in being so vehemently in disagreement with me about them? Is it just like, because you feel so peaceful? Like I love the way that you view things, and in some ways I feel like I envy whatever this connection with Christianity is that you have now, and I feel like it's not entirely the same as when I first like met you. It's grown, it's changed, it's evolved to a certain degree. As much as maybe I take a liberty in saying that, but like you seem almost like in zero judgment, or just like you seem so much more peaceful than a lot of people that I end up engaging in this conversation. I guess I should say I like that about you.
Well, yeah. Well,
there's a compliment.
I probably wouldn't have been this way.
Okay.
If I hadn't got the living shit kicked out of me emotionally.
Wow. Mm.
And I also spend most of my time with people that vehemently hate everything I believe. So I'm really, I'm okay with it. Like, all I can do is speak to my experiences. And that's all Christians are told to do. Like, to speak to what God has shown you and given you experiences in, and say, this is what I've experienced. Like, you're married, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think I talked to your wife on the phone yesterday.
Yeah, she handed me the phone and she goes, it's Toby?
Yeah.
And I was like, Tobin. God! And I slapped her in the face. That's not true. She has a beautiful face. I would never ruin that.
Yeah, man, that would be rough. It's kind of like this. Like, whenever somebody's like, hey, being a Christian, and I think the biggest thing is I understand why people get so pissed off at the church and why they hate Christians. I get it.
We hate ourselves.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
The problem that Christians have not done, the thing that we haven't done well, is conveyed the fact that our faith is designed after something called grace. It's based off of a premise that mankind is not perfect and we're not good in general, and we need redemption. We don't pay attention to that enough. We just like to act like we have it all figured out. And it's like, the reality is that, Jesus didn't walk around and knock on doors and say, have you heard the good news of me lately? It was, he spoke, he ticked people off, and he went and hung out with people that were broken. And that was his heart. And so, like, that's why I just say, like, forget all the Christianity stuff. Yeah. Just try to understand Jesus and what he taught, and build that relationship, and the grace for people, Christians in general even, will come because of being connected to the source of love, which he is. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do this otherwise. Otherwise, it's a fool's errand. Like, you can't get enough love for these jacked up people in the world that we live in, both Christian and non, if you're trying to pull it out of thin air or out of yourself. You just can't do it. You'll get steamrolled every time by selfish people. So, I don't know. Go through your process. I say that to everybody. Go through your process. Allow for things to be just. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know crap. Like, I'm sure you're the same way. Like, you're just like, man, I thought I had it all figured out.
Oh, yeah, it's waking up every day and being like, well, I wonder what I won't know today.
Yeah.
Or what it's just constantly kind of rewriting your chapters. I think that there are a lot of people that listen to the podcast who are at very different places in their spiritual journey. I think that there are a lot of people who are kind of where I am, which is like everything's on the table, but I really do love this narrative of Christ, and I think there's something important and powerful there, but I'm still sifting through it. And then I think there are other people that are like, no, I'm done, but I kind of have this like, I grew up with a lot of this rhetoric, and so it kind of, I get it, like I understand the Christianese of stuff, and sometimes it just like feels nice to talk about, to hear other people's experiences. And then there are other people that are like, I really wish Matt would get back on the train. I think it runs the gambit, and maybe for people that don't speak Christianese or that didn't grow up with this sort of rhetoric, I would say to you, Tobin, that I think that you have probably presented one of the kindest, most accepting, heartfelt forms of Christianity that I have experienced in a long time. You've got away with me.
Well, I'll be honest with you, man, like, there are days when I struggle with my faith, like, where I was like, Lord, this is crazy. This makes no mental sense. Like, and you're asking me to believe this. Like, you'll read a scripture that's just like, what the heck, Yeah. And I think, do you have any kids? I don't know if you have kids?
I don't think so. No, I'm pretty sure I don't.
No funny boner, no fuzzy boner manifestations from the
had one too many fuzzy boners in my day, and
sorry.
Yeah.
Completely.
Do you have kids?
I do. Well, I have a kid coming, and it's starting the process of. I've thought a lot about this. As soon as you find out your wife is pregnant. And to finish my story real quick, a few years after my ex left, I completely came across this girl from Canada that is absolutely one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And
from Canada. Wow.
She's Canadian. Yeah, man.
You four-leaf clovered that shit. I'm just kidding. Wait, I only ever meet weird people from Canada. Like, I only ever meet the weirdest people from Canada. And I loved all the time that we spent there, but I just every time that we were ever in Canada, I would always find myself in these like awkward conversations with people where like, I guess they don't do American small talk the way that we do American small talk.
Well, she's a Plains person, which means she's from Saskatoon. She's a Western Canadian, so like I know they're a little bit more like they're like Midwesterners, you know, like Americans, where it's a little bit more even keeled and like chill, and she also grew up most of her life in America too, so she's eaten
at Culver's before. That's great.
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah. God's fast food restaurant. Right. So when you realize you're gonna have a kid, and after you have a few weeks of breathing into a bag, hyperventilating, not knowing what your future's gonna be,
so that's normal.
That's normal. Okay. You start, and I'm not even an expert on this, but from what I've ever picked up, and from just experiencing friends and stuff, like you want your kid to know that above all that they're loved and they're accepted.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that's going to change that. Like, and parents don't do a good job of this. Like, there's a lot of examples of parents don't do well with this. But like, I did a very valuable thing in my life a few years ago. I left my church, which I loved. It was a great place, nothing wrong with them. But I needed to be in a place where I wasn't a leader, where I could just settle out my experience with God and just say, okay, I need to be a son before I'm leading other people, because I do the duty part really well. But I don't feel loved. And as a matter of fact, I'm starting to resent the fact that I don't want to tell people about you because I don't believe you're good right now. And I don't know about you right now. I'm struggling with this. And
so you're talking about God. Like,
God, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is a guy that was ministering as a pastor.
Yeah.
And I felt this way. Like I was encouraging people in their walk with the Lord and feeling guilty that I was ruining their good time. By telling them about a relationship that would actually challenge some of the things that
probably make them suicidal at some point.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully not. I don't know of too many people that were suicidal in our church, but I needed to know. I needed to step away and have a relationship with God that was based off of me and Him alone, and not the expectation of spiritual nourishment that I'd be providing for somebody else. And I was a PK, so all we had to do was provide for other people. Like our whole life was lived to encourage people, right?
Yeah.
Which is not the normal PK story. PKs are nuts. They are nuts, yeah. But I went to a church that was, I stepped away, went to a church that was headed up by an Irish guy, so it wasn't an American, which is really, really helpful during the 2016 elections. That was really a helpful thing to have.
What a likely story. You've played in a Celtic punk band for most of your life, and you end up with an Irish pastor.
Yeah. Well, not only an Irish pastor, but a church congregation that was completely diverse. Like, every ethnicity was represented in the church.
Is it still in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm still in Chicago. Yeah, it's still in Chicago. And every Sunday he'd get up in the midst of all of the political chaos that was going on that year, and he would tell us all to repent and go back to the Queen. And that you Americans are nuts, as a joke, just to kind of get us all to settle down, because we were all so like diverse in our political views in the church. And he's just like, remember that Jesus really wasn't about a political party, and you can't own him. Like, there's no owning him. America can't own him. He's bigger than your country, so get over yourselves. Yeah. And it was really a healthy slap in the face every week to have that as a reminder. And then just to be around people that were authentically going after Jesus without all the rules. I mean, these people drank more than most people that I knew in the bars would. Like, I come from a church that didn't drink at all, and then they're like, "Hey, we're all getting together for bourbon night at Pastor's house this week. You should come over." And I'm like, "What? That's you can't do that. That's not right." And I went through the process of, and it was responsible, but they enjoyed enjoyed that stuff. And I'd walk in with these people that I saw as spiritual giants. They were just like authentically 100% I'm after it. And they were just walking in a way that was full of freedom that I really had never experienced. And it was really a rejuvenating thing to my heart, and to understand that there was room with God to be free. And I didn't, and I'm not talking about freedom like, hey, we're all going to share each other's spouses next week at church. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. There's definitely,
wife swap Pentecostal.
Wife swap. Yeah. The best kind of Pentecostal. I speak in tongues that you've never known. Yeah. But like, and just to know that God genuinely loves me.
Yeah.
And he genuinely loves people in spite of his church. Even though that, I had failed as a Christian with people and I had not loved the way I was supposed to, he still genuinely pursues. And even if I give up on people, he doesn't. There's people probably in your life that have given up on you and God hasn't. So it was kind of like, in a weird way, there was a point in my marriage experience where I came to the realization of no matter what I did, I couldn't win my ex-wife back. There was nothing in her that was going to accept me back, no matter what. And I had a list of things that I had gone through and did. Over time, I drove 14 hours just to drop some things off to her and bought her some new things, and just whatever I could do. I sent her care package, just whatever I could do to try to win her heart back.
Yeah. And
nothing that I could do could earn her love. And there was a point where I just said, you know what, God, I can't run this race anymore. She's just not there. And there was a peace that I got that day. After sobbing on the floor of my church at the time, I got my notice of divorce in the mail, and I went over to my church and I laid on the floor for hours, just crying and sobbing and saying, Lord, I know this isn't your heart, and I know you didn't do this to me, but this is the decision that's being made. There's a gun being put to my marriage's head, and the trigger's being pulled without my consent. But I also don't want to fight her on her free will, because you don't fight me on mine.
Right.
Like, you don't force me to serve you. You don't force me, that's tyranny, and you're not, I've never experienced that in my walk with the Lord at all, so I had to let it go.
God was like, Tobin, just a real quick reminder, while you're here on the floor, and this is where you feel most comfortable, we have to vacuum before next service.
Because this right here is an abomination.
Teresa can't get in here to clean.
Yeah.
Can we move it to a different room?
Totally, man, totally. And that's exactly it, man. It's so, there's the duty, the duty comes up, you're like, oh man, I gotta vacuum the floor. Yeah, so the journey is, I think, more important than the speed at which we arrive at places. So I just tell everybody, pursue truth. Don't become lazy with it. Don't pursue safety. Find out what kind of gas your car is running on.
Yeah.
Is it diesel? Is it insecurity? Is it unforgiveness? Is it peace? Is it, what is it? And maybe you need to change the kind of gas you're putting in your vehicle. It's not really bringing you the peace that you were promised. And there's a lot of people that walk around like that. So
I think that's such an interesting metaphor, because I would imagine you and I both see that on a daily basis with friends and people we don't know, with just living regular life. That, there are people that I feel like this feels so youth pastory to say this, but I do think that's a really great analogy for what is the gas that you're putting in your vehicle. A lot of times it's acceptance. Sometimes it's a marriage. Sometimes it's good things. Sometimes it's things that sometimes it's just good deeds or works or doing nice and healthy world healing things that makes you feel like you can derive purpose and meaning, and that gives your life trajectory. And it's almost like everybody's trying out different gases in their car, at all times. And when you watch people go through, I go through really rough bouts of anxiety and depression, but I don't go through the normal I gosh, I just want to lay in bed all day and not do anything. I go through the I have to get up and I have to busy myself with everything I can to sort of keep the low level simmer from getting too hot. And I'm just now at this age, at this moment in my life, coming to this point where I'm cognizant that I have problems, that gas is running out, and there are areas of my life that are imploding. That there are areas in my relationships that are just they're not sustainable. I'm not on a sustainable trajectory with those kinds of things. And so it's some of that's spiritual, some of it's not. Some of it's just, there are other ways in which I feel the happiest I've ever felt in my entire life. But you would probably know better than a lot of people. There are certain habits that you get, that you fall into with relationships, with band members, with the way you respond to people, with especially touring and being in new places every night, to where you're I feel like I'm still kind of pitchforking my way through that hay bale.
I think a lot of the grace that I have for people, though, came from my band members. Because there were seasons in my band where there were guys in the band that were going through their own crises of faith, and they were just I don't know what I believe about this. And we'd have these long conversations where every religious spirit in my body was getting pricked, and all of those knee-jerk reactions, you're messing with fire here. Don't ask those questions. Those were all being challenged, and I'm really thankful. They weren't comfortable conversations.
Yeah.
But when truth is really being hashed out, it's rarely comfortable because we don't have a natural propensity for it.
Yeah.
We like to hide in our own. We like to hide in our own false stories, false ideas of how it all works.
Yeah.
And everybody does. I do it myself too. And I'm constantly having to redefine and re-challenge what I think based on my interpretations of life, relationship, scripture, all of it. Say, all right, Lord, what does this mean? This is a horse of a different color. How does this work?
Yeah.
What happens when playing your shows doesn't feed that itch that it always did before? What happens when you're not happy doing what you always loved doing? And that happens. People that live lives that only some of us can dream of are committing suicide on a regular basis. And we all scratch our heads going, why is this happening? It's because they're not finding fulfillment. The things
they ran out of gas.
Well, yeah, they were putting the wrong gas in, and then they realized that it wasn't the right thing. And that's not to, it's a tragedy.
I think it's probably infinitely more complicated than that. I realize that we're bastardizing the subject of suicide right now. I know. Don't send me hate mail. I get what's happening.
I've lost so many friends to suicide. It sucks.
Yeah.
And it's really hard, to even think about that. But at the same time, there is a lot of hopelessness in the world. There's a lot of people that are struggling, and we need to stop and love people. So my friend has a shirt. He's a solo artist called Good Saint Nathaniel, and a lot of the stuff he does talks about interpersonal healing and stuff. It's really good stuff. And he's got a shirt that said, "Sometimes we forget that the hurting need a hug," and that's it. That's all they need. They just need somebody to shut up and love them. And sit with them as they're trying to process, and not try to give them their process. But
I love that. So tell me this, since we've had a pretty depressing conversation so far. What was the no? These are good. These are my favorite kinds.
I'd like to depress the crap out of you.
No, so this is actually. I feel like I depress the crap out of other people because I feel like the most innate thing I know about myself is that I can't quit kicking the tires on everything, and I need to see the absolute worst of a thing to be able to understand what the absolute best of a thing is, including myself, including circumstances. That's how I make decisions in life. That's how I view. I want to know the dirty secrets behind how everything operates, including myself. And
that's because you've been hurt.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe some of that
Most
is
people
me
do that.
insulating myself from more pain. But I find so much joy in talking through the negative, because I feel like everybody that I talk with really negative things or seemingly negative things, there's almost always something so beautiful on the other end of the conversation if you stick with it long enough. And it's a kind of beauty that you can't come to through a smile. You can't come through through happiness. Like it's almost like there's a special kind of happiness and joy that you experience only by walking through the bullshit to get there. As I'm sure you probably lived in your own life, especially like.
Well, sometimes my dad always had a term when he'd preach. It was sometimes you have to wade through the manure in a barn to find where the pony is.
That's true.
To realize
asshole
that
pony just buried itself in shit in the back of the barn, and you got to go all the way back.
And then you got to clean the pony, because it's all jacked up. Yeah.
What a terrible analogy. Is somebody raising their hands and be like, I'd like to testify to something different, to another analogy, please? I'm actually a farmer, and this affects...
Well, that's the best part of saying that to a whole bunch of people from Chicago who have never seen a horse in real life. They're just like, I've seen them on TV. I have no clue what you're talking about, dude. It's just it's completely, we lived on a 60-acre farm when I was a kid. Yeah. And then we found ourselves living in the middle of like south side of Chicago, where people were having street fights outside of our door and throwing bottles at each other and screaming obscenities at each other outside of bars next to our house. And it was a total life shock. I mean, down the street from where I lived, a gang pulled up on a funeral procession and completely took machine guns and destroyed the front cars in the funeral procession because they knew that the other gang leaders would be in that funeral procession's cars.
Oh, okay. So that was the idea. I'm like, he's already dead. You're late. You're the worst gangsters ever.
Yeah. And that was kind of like, and we didn't even live in a bad neighborhood. This was actually a good neighborhood where this happened. So like, it was just kind of a crazy life change. But anyway, I digress.
So actually, I say all that to say, do you remember the worst moment of being in your band? Like the most depressing, uncomfortable, I don't know what I'm going to do, we're probably going to break up any second now moment that you might have had with the guys?
Anytime you go through a band member change, the loss of that person in the band is really hard for me. I'm a really relational person, and Flatfoot was always run like a family. So whenever, and honestly, to this day, there's not one Flatfoot member that I don't still talk to, and we still hang out when we can. Like we all love each other. There's no
animosity or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, there's been 3 guys in 18 years that have come in and out of the band.
That's amazing.
Or maybe four. Yeah. I think the first time that our the hardest part was losing a bagpiper and trying to replace a bagpiper. That is impossible. Well, think about it. Like, bagpipers are a unique group of people in general, and they just...
That's an understatement.
Oh, dude. Like, so when our original bagpiper, Josh, left, we didn't know what to do. We were just like, man, how do we replace this guy,
Yeah.
And when you get older, what happens with bands is that as you go, life takes over. All of your aunts at family functions, when you get together with them, them asking, when are you gonna grow up and do something real with your life?
Oh yeah,
it gets old to the point where you're like, you know what, maybe I should just do it. And then you get married, and maybe your spouse is kind of like, hey, I'd really like to see you more. So anyway, I think trying to find a new piper was really difficult. We had some scenarios early on in the band where we had a scenario where we all got not run over, but we all got hit by a car. Not in our car, but outside.
What?
Yeah, so we were driving home from a show. It was just back in like 2003. We had played with Haste the Day, actually, when they first started.
Yes.
They were just beginning.
Yeah.
And we had just got done with the show. We were heading home. It was like 2 a.m. And a car was following us back to our house with our bagpiper's sister in it and his cousins. And they got rear-ended on the highway. So this guy comes flying up and slams into the back of them, throws him into a tailspin. And we see it in our rearview mirror. We pull over and we run back to them in the middle of the highway to see if they're okay. And as we're standing outside of the car, traffic just starts coming through, and a car plows through and hits the side of the car where we were all standing.
Oh
I
my
jumped.
God.
I jumped on top of the car and held onto the roof as it's getting slammed, and it kind of spun. And Josh, our bagpiper, stepped behind the driver's side door.
Yeah.
And the door got hit and bent all the way to the front hood, and it hit him, and he catapulted him out into the highway.
Oh my God.
About 20 feet. Yeah, like he just flew out there and was. So that was a real kind of like come to Jesus moment. Because we're all sitting there like, what in the world? Like, and then everybody else, there was probably about 4 or 5 other kids that were standing there with us. They all just started running the opposite direction away from the car. And we were on an overpass, so you couldn't jump off the road. Otherwise, you'd fall 40 feet to the street below. Oh, my God.
This is Final Destination shit.
Oh, it was crazy.
Oh,
it was crazy. And all of these girls that had just been rear-ended get hit a second time as they're hyperventilating, trying to gather their composure, just to have another car careen through and take out their car. So Josh, the story's pretty cool. Josh, he said he felt like he landed on somebody. He said it was really interesting. Like he flew through the air. He was the one that got hit, and
a pillow angel.
Well, he thought he had landed on one of us. The thing that was crazy about it was he was on a phone with his brother when this all happened. So all his brother heard was, the noise, and the phone was sitting out there in the middle of I-90 in Chicago for about 5 minutes before anybody picked it up and answered. And his brother's on the line going, "Hey, is anybody there? What's going on? I can't, So we actually have pictures of Josh in a neck brace playing shows later on against his doctors. Advising
wills, orders, commandments, everything.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience, man. But we were all stupid kids that we were like, we're touring, we're gonna get out there and play shows, I mean, I was about 19 at the time, so or maybe I was 20, I don't know, but yeah, we didn't know you don't get out of a car and get in the middle of a highway ever.
Yeah.
It's just stupid.
So tell me what would have been, when's the last time that you felt so happy you thought you were going to explode with the band?
With the band. So happy with it.
Where you're just like, this happy feeling is going to possibly propel me through the next 2.5 years chasing it again.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot with bands. Like there's so many highs that you play every night with a great show. You have those experiences of just being like, this is amazing. This is everything I ever wanted this to be. I think a lot of the old Cornerstone shows were really great for us. Like we had some amazing shows during that time. It's amazing that you go through seasons where you're playing in front of crowds of 1,500 people, and then you'll go through another season where the biggest crowd you played for is in front of 100.
Yeah.
And you had just played. I remember one show we played. We played a show in front of 20 people at a bar. Went to Youth Specialties Conference in San Diego. Played in front of about 5,000, and then got in our car. And this is all within a 24-hour period.
Oh yeah.
Got in our car and drove out to a small outpost in the middle of the desert on the Mexican border, and played for a bunch of Navy Seabees in a reconstructed barracks building. There's about 20 of them. So like we completely had this really wild numbers shift within a 24-hour period.
Oh yeah.
And completely different results for the shows. I mean, those Youth Specialties concerts were all youth pastors who were like, I remember going to see the Supertones in 5-Iron. This is great, And like, I'm reliving my childhood. Let me go dance or skank, to a band that isn't ska. And so it's just an interesting. Whenever we go to Russia, it's a really cool experience because there's good crowds that show up whenever we're there. And so I think those are some of my happiest moments of just, I don't know, feeling like you're valued. You play a lot. Yeah. And then you have fans that just are huge supporters and they love you and they're great. But to have a lot of them there is really helpful and reaffirming of like, all right, this is cool. So, I would say that's probably part of it. Yeah. That's hard. That's a hard question, man. That's actually my favorite moment was Shoutfest 2007. Watching 11D7 completely piss off an entire festival and almost get kicked off of it,
oh my God, that's amazing.
That tour was a fun one, man. I had a youth pastor walk up to me in Tulsa, Oklahoma on that tour, and he said, "Hey, you want to see my testimony?" And I'm like, "See your testimony?" He's like, "Yeah, let me show you." And he pulls up the sleeves of his shirt, and it's 150.
He just whips his dick out, and you're like, "That's not a testimony."
That's a disgrace.
I mean, he was a youth pastor. What do you? No.
Oh, so that was the kind of experience you had in church. Okay. All of a sudden, this becomes way more real. I'm really sorry.
But you were saying I'm bogarting your story to make a dick joke.
No, it was 115 degrees that day. It was the hottest place after Baghdad, Iraq, in the world that day.
Yeah.
And this guy pulls up his sleeves, and on his arm, he's got tattooed all these pentagrams and the severed head of Jesus Christ on his arm in a jar.
What?
And I'm like, my first thought was, your church let you take kids anywhere? Yeah. like, what in the world? And he basically was just saying, like, I'm talking like some deep satanic symbolism going on his arm. And he was just like, yeah, this is what I came out of, and this is what the Lord saved me from. And I'm like, that is awesome, but at the same time, like, you're a youth pastor. Like, I can't believe your church is awesome that they would, you know what I mean? Like, not have a problem with this.
Like, he was like, I don't even shop at Hot Topic no more.
Yeah. Well, it's just Hot Topic. It's a Hot Topic, Satan's outlet mall or whatever, outlet store. There's just funny experiences. Funny experiences all around, man. I often wonder where a lot of those people ended up. I don't see a lot of.
Oh, you mean like the youth pastors and all those people that we met on the road?
Everybody on Shoutfest, actually. Just a lot of those bands, like a lot of them just didn't exist after that. So.
You know, the more that I look back on that time in our career or in my life, the more I'm like, God, I wish I could go back and do it all over again, because I didn't know how to enjoy it, because there's always this film of anxiety over all of it, out of losing it or not doing it correctly. And I feel like a lot of me acting out was literally just trying to prove to myself I wasn't anxious. And so I give everyone else anxiety by being around me, because I would use these moments to act out in really big ways to prove to myself I'm not anxious. Like, just ridiculousness. And then I think about all the people that were like you guys, and gosh, it's a lot of the other bands on Flickr. Nevertheless, we played a bunch of shows with them too. And I wish that I had have soaked in just being around all of those people at that one point in their lives, because you forget what a gift it is to be impressionable together and to literally know nothing about what's going on around you, and to kind of just have each other to bounce ideas off of about the world, and
just to be ignorant enough that you can enjoy everything without being in a deep, thoughtful processing of it. You know, like it's just you are like because you don't have time. You don't have time to overthink it. You have a show to get to. Or you got to go sell merch or whatever. What's amazing to me is when you're in those seasons, you think it's going to be like that forever and only get better. And you realize as you live more life, and we're talking like two ancient men here. We're only halfway through our life, hopefully. You just realize that there's a lot of things that this could be the last time that I do this. You know what I mean? This could be the last weekend I play. My van could break down next week and I couldn't afford to finish my tour. Like, there's just a lot of like things that happen like that. So yeah, man, there's a lot to it, man. There's so many things that you learn. We've lived a lot of life, dude. Like when you're in a band, you live a lot of life really early, and you're kind of like, man, I don't know what I could do to top those early years of. I mean, I've been in the middle of like 500 guy bottle fights. Oh man, like crazy stuff. Like, it's an insane thing to be able to say, I know what it's like to be in a venue where riot police come in with shields to break up the show because half the room are Nazis that are throwing bottles at the other half who are not Nazis. And
wow.
You know what I mean? Like, you're having a race riot fight in the middle of a show, and my brother, our drummer Justin, he gets hit in the head with a bottle.
Yeah.
In the middle of it all. Like, you're just like, man, I just live. And then you go outside and there's snipers on the buildings because they're covering the police. You're like, I'm like, what in the world did I just walk into?
Are you playing in Afghanistan?
No. Well, this is Allentown, Pennsylvania, 2008.
Oh, and my God, Allentown.
Oh, yeah, it's an amazing, incredible place. But it was just an absolute... And in the middle of it all, you're just like, this is exciting. What is going on? This is amazing. And you're just like, you don't really realize the gravity of the situations that are happening right in front of you. And that was the weekend I started dating my ex-wife. Actually, it was at that festival. Yeah. So
you came out of a Nazi bar and you're like, all right, it's a low bar from here on out.
Well, I wasn't hanging out at a place. It was a festival, and a bunch of Nazis came and they decided they wanted to make trouble. But just a wild. I mean, who gets to say that? Who gets to say that they've been in the middle of bar fights with Nazis before? You know what I mean? Like, that's such a crazy thing to say in general.
Oh, I know.
Like
it just sounds like you're a senile old grandfather who's like, I remember when a thing happened that maybe it didn't. Like, okay, that's the Alzheimer's talking again. Yeah. All right, Tobin. Papa Toby.
Oh, man, yeah. So there's a lot of fun. So I'm excited to keep doing it. Flatfoot's still playing. There's a lot of things still happening. And
yeah, I still see you guys pop up on social media stuff. Speaking of which, I've monopolized 2 hours of your time.
Yeah.
Tell me what's next for Flatfoot. What's like the next thing you're excited about?
Well, we just went through a two-member change this year, so we've been kind of reorganizing some things.
Yeah.
We put out an acoustic record this year where we took some old songs and we redid them acoustically.
Yeah.
And basically slowed them way down and try to revisit them in a way that was just different. That was really cool.
Yeah.
And we are going out. We're going to Texas in September for a tour, which will be cool. Yeah, I mean, like I said, my wife is pregnant, so we're going to be having a baby in November. So I'm trying to give us some time to kind of get used to that.
Yeah.
And so, but we'll see what happens next year. I think we get some.
I have to tell you this, because I what was the last record that you guys put out? Like Tugboat Terror or Elbow?
Odd Boat, yeah.
Odd Boat. Okay. Why the hell you didn't name it Tugboat Terror? I'll never know. No one calls me for advice. I need to consult
you before we do stuff.
I got so pumped about that record, and I also bought it on vinyl. Take that, awesome, Flickr. Dude. You have no idea what I'll spend money on. And I got it, and it came in the mail. And then, so this is like such a petty thing to be upset about. But like,
it wasn't messed up, was it?
No, it wasn't messed up. But it was like when I got it, it had everybody's signature on the front of it, and I was like, "But
you didn't order that?
No." I was like, but I'm friends with everybody. It was like, it made me feel like I wasn't a friend anymore because I got all these damn signatures on the front. I'm like, they ruined the artwork. I can tell this guy didn't give a shit about what his name was. He just scribbled something on there. And now I look like a fanboy. And then when I try to show this album to my friends and I'm like, you got to check this record out, they're going to be like, do you like, you stand in line and wait to get an autograph for this shit? Like, wait, what kind of person are you? I thought you were an industry insider. I'm like, no, Tobin still signs stuff he gives to me because he knows it's important to me.
Yeah, take this, Langston. This is the
ruining your street cred.
I must have gotten mixed up. You know, we have a company that does a lot of our fulfillment for our online store. Maybe they threw in the wrong vinyl and the wrong thing or something.
I will say this though, I loved the record, and I still put it on a couple times every month when I just really need to get jacked for something.
That's cool,
and I don't know where you guys got it pressed, but God, it looks the red, like the transparent red that the vinyl is, just looks insanely cool.
Yeah, that's Pirates Press out of San Francisco. They do really cool stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, they're quality,
super cool, dude.
Stuff, so.
Well, I have absolutely loved us being able to spend time together. This
man.
may end up being a two-parter.
I'm sorry. Podcasts that I do have a tendency to go as long as people will listen. So
don't apologize for that. You were only paid for 30 minutes, and you everything else is gratis. So
sure.
Awesome.
You can edit it the way you want, for sure.